We will call the meeting to order at 5:32 PM. Ms. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes, here.
Ms. Hunt Daly, Mr. Jaramillo,
Here.
Mr. Ortiz,
He's on,
Mrs. Lee.
present. We do have quorum. At this time, are there any changes to the agenda as presented, and if so, what?
President Lee, I would like to mention that our presenter for presentation D is on the road and traveling, so we may need to be a little flexible with that presentation.
Understood. Anything else? All right, Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the agenda as presented?
I recommend that we approve the agenda.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make the motion to approve the agenda as presented. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve the agenda as presented. Further discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Ms. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daly, Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Can he unmute? He may not be able to unmute.
Mrs. Lee,
Aye. Motion carries.
he's not on. He's not muted.
Can you,
He muted himself.
Need him when we get to the votes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Adoption of the minutes. First, we have March 19th. That meeting. Do we have the minutes? Oh. We do. I'm open to the minutes right now.
Where'd it go?
Are there any changes to the minutes for the March 19th meeting?
Recommendations either.
All right, Superintendent Weiner, is there a recommendation for approval of the minutes as presented for the March 19th board meeting?
I recommend to approve the minutes for March 19th.
All right, may I please have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Move the adoption of the minutes as presented for March 18th, March 19th, and the 22nd, am I correct?
We're doing that separately, the 20,
2024, okay.
correct, we're gonna do the 26 separately. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the minutes as presented for the March 19th, 2024 board meeting. Need for discussion?
No.
Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz, Mrs. Lee.
Aye, motion carries. We will now move to the March 26th, 2024 special board meeting minutes. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If so, what?
I'm ready for motion.
Superintendent Widener, oh, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay, Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for approval of the minutes as presented?
I recommend that we approve the March 26th minutes as presented.
Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes for the March 26th, 2024 special board meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for March 26, 2024.
May I-
Special meeting.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
I second the motion to approve the special board meeting minutes of March 26th.
Thank you. Any need for discussion? Hearing none, we shall proceed to, oh, pardon me, I need to restate that. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve the March 26, 2024 special board meeting minutes as presented. Now, Ms. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes.
Mr. Hadamio,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz, Mrs. Lee.
Aye, motion carries.
Ms. Hunt Daly said she has not received the link yet, so I'm gonna resend it.
Try again. Thank you, ma'am. Recognitions, Mr. Widener.
Awesome. Tonight it's my honor, it's my honor to recognize outstanding students from our two high schools, from Grants High School and Laguna Acoma High School. We were hoping that we would be able to present our state winning teams with recognition and they did make it to state and they qualified for state. So we want to recognize the Lady Hawks basketball team for making it to state. And we also want to recognize its team for making it to state. I would like to invite the coaches of each team to come forward and talk a little bit about their season. So Coach Natsaway, Coach Chavez. Don't be shy.
Hello, thank you all for having us today. We would like to have the whole team here, but it's quite a drive for some of our student athletes. But just covering the entire season, this is my first year with this group of girls. They've been playing with each other for a couple years now. So it was an honor being able to, step in the position and give them the best effort that I had. And in turn, they gave me their best effort. And they really shined throughout the season. We had a little bumpy start, but once we started learning each other, how we work, how they work, how I work, we started picking it up there at the end of the season, and we did make it to state, where sadly we didn't get as far as we wanted to, but that's not the end for us. We want to regroup and plan for next year, and just come back stronger and keep representing Grants-Boulder County Schools as best as we can. It also goes to say that we don't just have great athletes, we have great student athletes, where 100% of our girls in athletics for basketball, they have none of them had S, we had no failure rates or anything like that, no academic problems. That's something really proud of our girls as well, that they have a good head on their shoulders. Of course, we have Gianna, who got picked for second team All-State, which is a great accomplishment for her, with her only being a junior. So we have a lot of potential coming back next year because we're not graduating any seniors. But I just want to thank you guys for your support throughout the season, and hope to be back here next year with the blue trophy.
We do want to recognize the student that made the all-state team. Congratulations to Gianna Carrillo. We have a certificate for you. We're very proud of you.
Picture.
Yes. No, Mom, you come be in the picture with us. Mom, you probably taught her all those basketball skills.
No, I don't. She's got 4 other sisters.
Rounds on.
Thank you.
Good job of you.
Congratulations.
Good evening, my name is Landon Chavez. I am the head basketball coach for our boys program. This was my 3rd season as head coach, full season. We had a COVID year and all those things in between. This year was extremely fulfilling for me and for our players as well. Being able to come back to my hometown where my roots began and being able to coach and give back to this community as well as this school district has been extremely fulfilling for me. But also the work and the testament that these gentlemen behind me and others that couldn't make it today have given to this program. And they bought in last summer and they put in work every single day. And they faced adversity throughout the season and the off season, but they found a way to continue to fight through that. And it showed. It came to fruition at the right time. And it did show that if you continue to work at things, sometimes things work out in your favor. And at times good things do happen to good people. Last year we won only 9 games, and to this year extend to 18 games, going to state for the first time in 8 seasons. So, and making it to the second round as well. We went toe to toe with the #1 team, Highland, who ended up winning it actually. So hats off to these gentlemen. It's a lot of what they do and the hard work that they put in, but also being student athletes in the process and learning that the classroom is equally as important as it is to play basketball, and also becoming great young gentlemen as well. Learning to say yes sir and yes ma'am, be polite, saying please and thank you, all these things that we try to teach them to be good students and people in society. So as we go forward, I know we have 6 seniors graduating this year, and I know they will go forth and be great out there, whatever they decide to do in their path. We've become a family, we've become bonded, and I'm extremely proud of these gentlemen, but also we have tons of athletes coming back next year. So we're extremely young in that regard, and we're gonna continue to try and build a program and build a culture of positivity and growth amongst these gentlemen. I wanted to recognize a couple of athletes. I had 3 players make the all-academic team, which is a 3.5 or above. We had Dominic Gonzalez, JJ Horacek, as well as Isaiah Griego. So those 3 gentlemen did that. We had Noah Victorino, who was a senior. He got 2nd team all-district, as well as Bodie Malonis getting 1st team all-district. And eventually Bodie as well getting 2nd team all-state. So extremely great accomplishments, tons of talent, great kids. I'm just honored that great players make great coaches. So I couldn't do it without them, but I appreciate their trust in me and all that they've done all season long. And it's a testament to them and as well as the support that we got. The community supported us all season long. Our admin, everybody from the top all the way to the bottom, they were there to support us. We couldn't do it without you guys. So I'm very thankful for all of you and proud of all of these young men. Thank you.
Coach Travis, we do have a certificate for Bodie Malonis for making the all-state team as well. And so he's playing baseball tonight for the Pirates. So-
Absolutely, we'll get it to him.
And we'd like to take a picture with your team if you want, gentlemen, if you'd like, Mrs. Elkins. We'll stand in front of the rock the test. do
So
your
over here we
best.
have Matthew Trujillo, he is a junior right now. PJ Gallegos, he is a senior, he's the one that's leading us. We have Roberto Chavez, who is also a junior, Uriah Gill, who is a junior, and John Horacek.
Oh, there she is.
And Stephanie Gaines, who is our assistant, taking pictures.
We'll go be,
And our principal, CDL.
we'll go join them.
And discretion like you like each other.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations, ladies. We do have one more recognition tonight, and I don't see her here in the audience. Our Family and Consumer Sciences teacher at Laguna Acoma High School was recognized through her professional organization. She is the advisor of a career technical student organization called DECA. And she was recognized as a young advisors award. And so we want to recognize for her leadership and dedication to the CTSO, Miss Vanessa Fernando. Would you give that to her? Perfect.
I told her she was welcome.
Yeah, tell her she's the young DECA advisor. Thank you. President Lee, that concludes our recognitions.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any citizens to address the board. Ms. Sandoval is out of the room right now. At this time, let's go ahead and move on to presentations. Mr. Widener.
Wonderful. As we do each month, we have our schools come and present. They present their dash plans, their data, their information. And tonight, we're very excited to have representatives from Milan Elementary School here that are going to present about their school year.
Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Stan Maskell. I'm the principal. This is Miss Danielle Lovesey. She's our assistant principal. And this is Mrs. Vanessa Marcus. She's one of our third grade teachers here. You can see our beautiful school there. The Zooms in the background. The first thing we want to start with was showing you some things that are happening in our classrooms. So as you can see, we have pictures here because our older kids this year have been going down to our lower grades, our primary grades, and they've been reading, working on assignments, they're doing crafts with them. So they might go to pre-K, they may go to kinder. Then kinder and pre-K will also go to the upper grades and they'll read to them. So that's exciting for our classrooms. So I'm really excited about that. And the kids really love it. The older kids love going and doing it. They get mad if they miss it. And then the younger kids really enjoy it because they look up obviously to the younger kids. So that's something that's been a lot of fun. The next thing is our Lego Club. We have about 50 students that participate in the Lego Club. It's been as much this year as 100 kids that stay after school. And it's once a month. And Brenda Alheim is one of our first grade teachers. She is our sponsor as well as one of our parents. And so the kids, as you can tell from the pictures, absolutely love it. So that's been a big after school activity for us as well.
So we had the pleasure of having Daniel Kimberg come to our school. He wrote a book, Horizon. It was a wordless book, so we were able to get the book and hand it out for our classrooms. We had the classes go over it and kind of give us their interpretation. And then he came to the school, we did an assembly, and he explained the book to us. Many of our staff knew him from when he was younger. They worked with his mom, and so it was a nice time to be able to connect with our staff. And then he also talked to our students about the possibilities that they have in their futures.
A little bit about our data that I wanted to show you, and obviously you all can look at the presentation and see our data. The first picture here is our data roof. We really, every week we look at data during our PLCs of some sort. We've created data boards, and so they have magnets. Each teacher has every student and has a data magnet for that student. And so it'll tell them their test scores, whether it's iStation or NMASA or IMASA or Synergy test. And so they create those. It's a visual presentation. It's something that I had asked us to do last year, and so we created it and started doing that. So we look at those. We've had some really tough conversations. We really have had to have tough conversations and have our teachers really look and examine what are they doing in the classroom that is effective or maybe not effective. So it goes both ways. But I'm a visual person, so it really helps me. Yes, I can look at the computer screen and see the same thing. But when you see it that way, it really is like an aha moment for you. And it also tells you, because you have every single grade level on there and every single kid is on there. So it helps our teachers too, because they can see that visually and what we need to work on. We've changed things in our classrooms, the way we do it. We changed our curriculum around, the way, that we handle our curriculum. I'm super proud of it. I think the teachers have done a great job of buying in with it, so I'm proud. And as you can see, our scores here, we took beginning of the year and middle of the year for IMASA reading, and you can see each grade level, how much they grew, or fell, actually. So both of those, and then it goes also, if you go to the next slide, you'll see the language usage, the same thing. You will also see the next one is math for IMASA. So those are our 3rd through 6th grade classes. And then our next one will be iStation reading. So that's our kinder, 1st and 2nd grade. And you can see how much they grew there for iStation reading, and then the same thing for iStation math. So we have seen growth, and those data talks I think have really contributed to that as well. We pay a lot more attention to data, so it's helped us in the classrooms. And then Ms. Marcus is going to talk to you about something her classroom does with data.
So basically, along with teacher awareness and data, I've decided to take it upon myself to make my students more aware. Something that I've found is I could ask them about what was your test score last quarter? What is your goal? And a lot of them tell me, I don't know, I've never seen that. So what I chose to do in my classroom is I made what are called data folders, and I just number them. Each student has a number. These ones I just labeled so you can kind of see, but I brought one for each level of learning. So inside, I chose 3 data points because I didn't want to overload them. I conference with them every month. They go through, we highlight, we talk about their goals, and I'll pass it around so everybody can see. But we chose Lexia, I chose iStation, and then we did IMASA, and we did beginning of the year and middle of the year. And we went through and we were able to gauge, okay, did you grow? Why do you think you didn't grow? So we have these types of conferences, and then they get to actually go home and share them with their parents. So this last time that we had parent-teacher conferences, I let them give the conference, and the conferences were student-led, and they were able to talk about their data and where they're going and what their goals are. And, if they didn't grow, they were able to say, well, what things can you do to make it better next time? And they would say, oh, well, I need to pay more attention. Or they were really honest, like it made me very proud, like it was one of those moments. So I'll go ahead and pass around, like you can see the different, I labeled them, you've got a high, medium, a low, and then you've got, so you can kind of see, and they also are able to choose one piece of work, student work to go in there. So they have an ELA side and a math side. So they're able to write, I want to showcase this to my parents, or, I think this was a really good writing, so you can kind of see them.
My baby. So, Mr. Maslow and I had the opportunity to go to Mountain Park with Kathy in January, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. And it is an inner city school. All of the students are on a scholarship each attend. It does cost $18,000 a year to go there, but their student fee
$39 a month.
So they are coming from poverty-stricken homes, and this is just the front of the school. So some of the things that we have taken from their school is their house systems. We have broken our entire school up into houses. All of our students have been sorted into their house, and that's where they will remain with that house for the rest of their time that they're at one. So our 3 houses are Thomasville, which is the red, Issabendy, the green, and River is the blue. All of our staff have also been sorted into, as you see, we're all, we've all been sorted into houses also. There is our house cup, so the students earn points within their house. This year, we are focusing on attendance and AR. Next year, we're planning on expanding it. We will pick 5 things that you can earn points for, and so those will be the 5 points that we really want to focus on next year. We do have this program that we'll have in place, so students can see who the house leaders are. They can input this, but they're voting. Our students who did archery, science fair, they all got extra points for their house. So it also encourages participation to earn those house points. We have talked about it, that behavior may take away points also from your house. Within the houses, there is a house chant. And then they have little greetings, so like you'll come one day and you'll hear our kids yelling, and it's like, who are you with? And then they all yell, this is whatever house they belong to. And so the kids have really taken this on. Our teachers have bought in. So our next step is to start presenting it to our parents, because we want our parents to get on board and to get excited and back their teams up also. So I have 2 videos here. The first one, which is in the classroom, this will be one of our houses, their chants. Oh, this one is in our so, we have incorporated music at lunch, and dance. We allow the students to stand up on the bench, because schools make them go on top, you have to have 2 feet on the ground. Or on the bench, you can't get up onto the top. Our kids love it. Ever since we've started doing this, we've noticed a huge decrease in our we've also noticed students are stepping out of So we've told like, if you don't feel comfortable dancing, you don't have to, and they do. I had one teacher who said, hey, I'm worried about this girl, she's really shut down. She just, I don't know what's going on with her, go check on her. She doesn't like the dancing. And so I went and I had to go back to the teacher. I'm like, she's you're late. And I took a video because she was up on the table dancing. She was like loving it. And even her mom was like, she's just, it's not coming out of her shell, and this had brought it up. So this is in the lobby of the school. It, can you go there? Yes, that's Ron Clark, soon to be ours. When you get sorted into your house, you get slide certified, and so you get put into your house, then you have to go down the slide. They use it for behavior supports, and it also just sets the tone and the environment of the school. So we have been working, we had and Mr. Tripleton, somewhere involved this, we had engineer come tell us like yes or no if we had a spot in our school We have talked to Mr. Triplehorn about getting the plan so we can submit it to the company and they are saying okay. So we are just trying to find the funds so we are able to do this. Our teachers are on board, they think it would be great to use as positive behavior. And so that's where we're at. And these are just a few of the things that we have brought back with us, but we've already seen a huge positive increase. Any questions?
Attendance probably went up too, huh?
What's that?
Attendance, because they want to go to do stuff.
Yeah, you put the slot in for sure.
Mr. Maskell, thank you very much. Ms. Lepsey,
Thank you.
Ms. Marquez. Board members, any more questions or comments for the Milan team?
I think when you get kids to learn how to work with each other instead of by themselves, makes schooling a lot more fun.
It's been really big, like for my class, after the first couple of times that we went, they came back and they said, wow, your job is really hard. Those little kids would listen to me, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a realization for them, you know, understanding where I'm coming from. I says, I tell them, you know, yeah, sometimes you can do that. They're like, I'm sorry. So it was really neat to see them become the teacher and do stuff.
These folders, I haven't had a chance to take a look at them,
You're
but
fine.
it's also important for them to claim ownership over
Yes. Responsibility.
who they are, what they desire to do, what their focus is. What is this all about?
Yes.
A lot of kids just go to school because they're supposed to go to school. No clue. That even extends into high school. You ask high school kids sometimes, you know, what are your goals? Many of them are have difficulty in articulating or even thinking that they actually should have goals. And we work in our school systems to do that. And so we need to begin that much earlier so that it actually is, whenever they articulate goals at the high school level, they would have been, because I've already been thinking about goals since I was in middle school and I was in elementary school. And the parents need to recognize that they must share in that awareness of some goal-oriented purpose of being in school. And that's excellent. I was trying to look at your shirts and I said, wonder, there's a typo in the spelling. You know, but that's quite interesting to be doing that, very novel. And the Ron Clark Academy, there's a Ron Clark that I knew that was a educator back east.
That's where he's from,
That's him.
And
North Carolina.
and he has a couple of books
Yes.
that
Yes.
way back when that talked about his expectations and beliefs in kids who did not have those expectations and beliefs. And I remember those books back some time ago. Very, I didn't know he had an academy. It's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you all. Looking at your IMASA, the language usage for 5th and 6th grade, can you, because it's pretty clear there was a big drop from the beginning of year to middle of year. Can you address that concern that we have seen?
Well, and we've talked about that with our 5th and 6th grade teachers, for sure. And attendance is one of the factors, makes a big difference. And the fact that attendance was one issue that we had. And then the other was the students, the motivation is just not for test taking. They rush through it. And so we've been working on test taking strategies with them because of NAMASA coming up. and IMASA, Synergy, and all the other tests that they have to take. I think that a lot of times they get overwhelmed because there's so many that they have to take at one time that they come in. So that's something we discussed as well. So the teachers have really, especially fifth and sixth grade, have been working on doing testing strategies, trying to get that stress off, take the stress off of them, and not really like go at it as a test. It's just, here's another thing you need to do for the day, so that there's less, of that. I
And
think they just get tired
sure.
of taking tests.
And same with the second grade, the iStation. That was not as significant of a decrease, but still notable.
But any decrease.
Yeah.
Is definitely, significant. We also, in our second grade, we have a long-term sub, so, we have that factor as well. And I'm not using that as an excuse because she's doing great, but, it does make a difference in her scores.
In sixth grade also, at the beginning of the year, we were having some growing pains because, this year, we tried something new, like having one teacher do math and, one do ELA science. And the way that the students were grouped, we were having some growing pains there. And so it was right before mid-year, our third grade group came to us and said, this isn't working, we can revamp the groups. And so we're hoping this go around that we'll notice some changes.
And we did that with sixth grade as well, revamped them as well, because they were strong.
Excuse me, Madam President, in what way did you revamp? How did you revamp?
We had changed the groups, the way that they were placed. Our teachers felt that if we had kept them in homeroom, that they would mesh better with each other. I think that was good.
Well, they were high, medium, and low is how they were set up.
Excuse me?
They were high, medium, and low is how they were set up.
Okay,
So that you could, do different things with the high kids, keep them going, but yet still work more one-on-one with your lower kids. But it didn't work. So we went back to homeroom, and so they're all mixed. And it's working actually better, and the teachers are all saying that it's working a lot better. Doing that, because your high kids can also help your lower kids as well. So you have a lot of peer tutoring, which helps.
Something I'm doing with second grade is, I'm meeting with them, we're talking about the expectations for their grade. I think some of their ideas and expectations weren't as high as we are expecting them coming in. So us third grade teachers are actually going into the second grade classes and explaining to the students our expectations when they come to us, what we expect them to be able to write, what we expect from math. So I think that will also help as far as second grade goes, sharing some of the resources, just different things that I've found. And just trying to get the teachers to buy in, so that was one of the biggest reasons. I've always done that for groups, but just trying to get more teachers to buy into it, because a lot of it, I think, is student awareness, them being aware of something you'll hear me say often in my classes. I am here to teach you, you are here to learn. That is your job, I know my job, so that they're aware that you're not just here to just hang out, you're here to do your job.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you. Mr. Widener.
At this time, Mr. Maldonado, we have attended the spring budget workshop and learned about the changes in budgeting and the funding that was allocated this year. And so Mr. Maldonado is working very diligently on building our budget for the 24-25 school year, and has kind of parameters to work with. And so he's going to share that with the board, so that way you all are in the loop of what's going into our budget.
All right, thank you, Madam President, board members, Mr. Superintendent. What we're going to talk about today is just sort of fundamentals of what we're doing this year to build our budget for this next coming year. And we presented to you some of the challenges as well as some of the opportunities that we face. And I think that as we continue this process over the next month and couple weeks after that. And you'll see as things begin to build and build upon each other, so I'm really excited about that. First thing I'm gonna share with you is this state equalization guarantee. So the state equalization guarantee, if you remember correctly, is the amount of money that the state provides to us each month or each year based on our student population and the level or type of students that we have. So I'll give you an example. Elementary school students cost more to educate than secondary school students. We take into account special education students, and there's different levels of special education students. We take into account fine arts students. We take into account high-risk students. All these things factor in to create what's called units. So we don't just get an amount called the unit value and multiply that by the number of students. We get that amount and multiply that by the units that we get, which is kind of like in healthcare, we used to call it not already, but how serious it is versus the lower serious, I'm gonna think of it in a second here. Anyway, so the higher required students, we get more units for. So last year, my unit value, or this current year, I should say, was $6,241 per unit. And we had 7,501 units, which gave us an original SEG at the beginning of last year in August or July of $46,820,000. At the end of the 40, 80, and 120 day count, they take into consideration, do you have those same students that you projected for the year, and they make an adjustment. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it stays the same, and sometimes it goes down. This year, again, it went down. Last year, it went down slightly. But this year, they made an adjustment of $465,000. So our revised SEG is 46 million. So monthly, that turns into 3.8 million. And the difference is we lost about 1.9 million. Let's see. No, I'll show you that in a second. The 24-25, our unit value went up by a whopping, and I'm being sarcastic when I say this, $200 a unit. So not very much, although there were a lot of legislative changes and increases and changes that you'll see later that affect the amount of SEG that we have to spend on some of the operations. SEG, right now, 71% goes to salaries. There are other salaries that are covered by other funds, not SEG. Some of them are covered by the ESSER funds, which are going away. Some of them are covered by title funds. Some are covered by grants. So we really, right now, 71% of the SEG covers those operational salaries, okay? About 29% goes into operations, keeping the lights on, all the things that we do to keep everything running, insurance, all the other things that go on with that. In 24-25, we kept the number of units the same because, and one of the reasons we went down on the adjustment was because we didn't have the number of students that we anticipated having by probably about 185 to 200 students fewer than we anticipated when we turned in our estimate back in the fall. So our new adjustment is $48,327,000. That's what we're anticipating for this next year. The monthly check will be $4,027,000, and that's where the 19 comes in, monthly 164. So you can see that it's an increase about $1.4 million to cover salaries and about $571,000 to cover operations. So it looks like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when we put this in context with all the other things that are coming up, it quickly dwindles. And so I'm going to share the good news about that. So we have some dramatic increases in expenses. Our liability, our risk insurance premium went up by 31.86%, astronomical amount. The medical plan premium this year went up by 15.53%, and wages went up 3%. So all these increases in expenses, I'm very happy about the wages, not very happy about the other expenses because here's what it looks like. So our risk premium this year, we paid almost $1.5 million. And that's one check that we cut in late July, early August. So again, I go back to, if you ever ask me why we have a large cash balance, it's because of things like this. We have to be able to cover it. You can't make monthly payments like we do in our car insurance or anything else. The risk premium now going next year, $1.9 million, $477,000 increase overnight that we're gonna have to take care of. Covered by that SEG, it didn't go up very much, right? So here's a big chunk out of that. The next one is the risk plan premiums is not just gonna raise this year, it's gonna go up next year by 17%. In 26-27, it will rise, the premiums will rise 4.35%. In 27-28, 4.35, now 29. That is a 45.11% increase in just the risk premium alone over 5 years. That's unheard of. The medical plan premiums, in about, we have about 298 of our employees who are covered by health plan from us. That premium went up by 15.35%. Last year it went up 6%. Next year at 8.9, 7.5, as you can see on that chart, going up a total of 61.91% over 5 years. More than doubling, almost. I mean, I've never seen premiums like this before. And the problem with this is that it affects the lower paid people the most. That's the hardest, right? So a lot of our classified staff, who are EAs, cooks, custodians, those group of people, many of them are still on state programs such as Medicaid. When they get the raise, like last year we got a 6% raise, it threw them out of the qualification for Medicaid, so a lot of them dropped the health plan, and they're not getting married, they're like doing all kinds of things in order to continue to qualify for Medicaid. Now they do 3%, again, bumping more people out of the qualification for state programs. Well, here's an impact. We did a modeling of some of these employees. If you can see at the upper left, this is a custodian, and he earns $17.53 an hour. His raise will go to $18.06 per hour. He works 8 hours a day, all year long. So his annual gross will go from $33,600 to $34,600, about $1,009 increase in gross wages. However, his premium is going to go from $937 every pay period to $1,083. So overall, that young man is using 86% of his raise just to cover the premium. And out of $873, he'll take home in gross wages $136.18, which, in my estimate, that's a sin. A cook in the next one over $19.91 per hour, she'll be 20.51. Her impact is she'll be using 67.68% of her raise. She'll take home this is a year, $276 a year divided by 26 pay periods. Again, I'm not good at math because I'm in finance, so that's not very much every paycheck, right? The bottom one is EA. This person is going to lose $25.78 over the course of a year. And I also did the same thing for teachers. You can see it depends on the health plan that they choose, but this is a significant issue that we're going to have to tackle. Mr. White has already asked us to put together some scenarios on what we might be able to do to help mitigate that. We'll be talking with you at your work session about some of those options to consider. But anyway, this is one of those big things that will impact employees. It will impact recruitment, it will impact retention, and also just dramatically increase our costs overall. So the other challenge is how do we staff now based on a demand of students? With the loss of about 185 to 200 students over this year, we have to take a good hard look at how we're staffing each school for what the grade levels they have and the needs for special ed, the needs for all the other things there, and the some of these funding sources are drying up, we're gonna have to figure out if we wanna keep, how we're gonna handle that to attrition or whatever. So that's another issue we're gonna have to look at, staffing by demand. As you can see here, based on the state standards now, that doesn't take into consideration any of the individual school issues. This is just a, 10,000 foot level, and here's what the state requires of us. We're over by, 14.9, 15 teachers essentially, in terms of what we have hired. So that's gonna take some of us to look at. We have between now and May 9th to submit our budget, so we're gonna have to take a good hard look at it. Yesterday, the executive team met all day, looking not just at other things, but taking a good hard look at staffing, trying to be as creative as possible for what we're going to do here, because we're talking about people's livelihoods, right? Also, adhering to the budgets is going to be a big issue. So here's an issue that our auditors ding us on every year, right? They ding us on whether or not we overspend on the title fund, whether or not we are over budget at any given time. They look at them every quarter, so it's not just at the end of the year. They look at every quarter, so we have to stay within budget every single quarter. And every single year since I've been here, we have had a audit finding because we overspent a certain fund or whatever. Here's an example of just this group's budget for the year. We had budgeted $35,000 for the board, right? And we have spent $88,740. So in terms of taking the lead on being an example, administration and the board, this is one of those things where in full transparency, we get a lot of eyes looking at us. I'll say especially the tribes look at us, everything that we spend, they want to know what we're doing on this. And so these are things that we're gonna have to look at. And if it means we have to increase the budget next year, then that's what we do, but we also have to adhere to that budget, right? So here's our expected revenue. So here's the gooder news, I would say. The nice thing about it, if you look at line A out of this, the projected cash. So we roll over cash at the end of the year that we have not spent. And last year we rolled over $13.9 million. Sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, I will say that for sure. But if you remember the cost of every single payroll is over $2 million every 2 weeks. This can dwindle very quickly. So we're projecting to roll over about $14 million in cash, and I'll show you some of those sources. And then we're budgeting, of course, the ad valorem taxes. I'm going to point your attention to line D. Line D is the investment income. Last year, when you authorized us to move over $10 million in our operating fund to Morton Capital, where we can earn interest, we earned $588,000. To date, we earned, just in the operating account, just over $386,000. We also moved over $4 million in the bond account to add to the bond money, because we anticipated that the building costs were going to skyrocket. They're sort of moderated, but we don't know what Mount Taylor is going to be in terms of when that comes up. Of course, every time I talk to Mr. Triplehorn, he makes me sad, because there are sometimes construction costs and also the cost of materials which get too expensive. So we really want to plan for that. And I've been very pleased with our investment income. And the nice thing about that is we can use that wherever we want to. And that's good. You can see the rest of this. So I'm anticipating this year we had total revenue just in the operating account, not title funds at all, of $64 million. I'm anticipating $67 million. Food service, we're going to go up just a little bit because of the way we're handling the food service money now in the accounts. We're getting a little bit more compliant than what we were before. Transportation up slightly. So overall, last year we had total revenues, when you count the federal funds, of about $109 million. This year, I'm anticipating about $116 million, or a 6% increase in revenue. Other sources of revenue are title funds and allocations. We're anticipating in grants about $42 million. I'll give you an example, one simple one that's not millions of dollars, but it's $200,000 that we got for CTE programs through the Internet Innovations Grant. You'll see an item on the agenda later to approve some equipment, adaptive equipment for special needs kids, $77,000, that's how that's being funded. These things that we can apply for, and the special allocations that come out of the, out of what's called below the line, the SEG that come out of the state that we can get an allocation for. A perfect example of an allocation that we don't anticipate would be that this year we got $870,000 in SBI allocation, additional allocation. We're gonna be coming to you to approve a complete refresh of Grants High School using that money. Money that doesn't come out of operations, comes out of the special allocation, and we ought to use it for student work, and that's really great. The next one is other sources of revenue. Here's where our investment results from Morton Capital. As you can see, we've $358,000 so far this school year. And for the operating account, and $152,000 for the bond account. Outstanding results. We're going to continue to do that until the floor falls out. And I don't know when that will be, but when we move our money back in. So here's how we're going to approach this year's budget. We're going to, again, relate, as the board had asked us to last year, relate the budget priorities with the strategic planning. Here's an example of how I separated them into three major groups. Capital investments. So going into the new school year, as we moderate what we're doing, because we don't have ESSER funds, when we kind of went, it was like a wild, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. We did a lot of great things with that, right? But that ride got turned off. So now we have to go back and see how we're going to moderate and use what we've done with this money and the money coming in to moderate how we're going to move forward, right? So the capital investments, there's a lot of building going on here, which is very, very important. I think probably the most building this school district has ever seen in probably 20 years. 3 new schools, the purchase of the new operations center, and hopefully if you guys approve the new 12th campus, the CTEC campus, that's a lot of construction, that's a lot of building, that really raises the profile, not only of the campuses itself, but also the programmatic areas of the school, which we hope will then improve attendance, will improve more students coming towards us. Academic achievement, the PED has made some really very directed, results-oriented requirements for us in academic achievement. Part of the SEG, part of the narrative now that we have to submit to the PED is how we're going to improve our academics. So you can see that, like the capital investment, that hits goals number 1 and 3 of the so 1 and 3 of the strategic plan, academic achievement so far, what we've outlined, hit goals number 1 and 2, and then the total, what I call the total staff experience. They include the teacher mentorships, professional development, stipends for special ed staff, mental health programs for students, families, and staff, and outreach to families. They hit goals. So we're gonna, as we bring this together, we're gonna tie all these into these goals so that you can see how we're making the attachment of what we're spending to the strategic plan. Payroll and benefits, as you can see, I won't go over that. It increases significantly. And here's our budget calendar. This is the last slide, I think. So here's what we're planning to do. So Tuesday, the second row, that's today. I'm doing a really good job of doing that right now. Tomorrow we have an employee forum just to walk through how the budget is put together. Last year, by the way, we did 22 forums. And so this year we're doing on Thursday, April 4th, we're going to be working with our principals on the budgeting process. That they're going to learn how to upload their budgets. And then on Thursday the 4th, right, we are combining this community and tribal forum with something that Ms. Jones is doing via Zoom. We have a finance committee meeting on April 5th, blah, blah, blah. You can see we're going to bring the draft budget to you on April 16th. Then you'll give us a couple of weeks to make any revisions based on what you're seeing, what you don't want to see, what you'd like to look towards other things. And then we'll bring it back on May 3rd to the Finance Committee for review. And then May 7th for final budget, and I have to send that to the PED on May 9th. A lot of information all at once. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maldonado. That was a lot for us to digest in a short time. Board members, anything you would like to ask Mr. Maldonado at this time? Mr. Maldonado, I would love to follow up though. Would you mind sending our board members that are not physically here this information?
Yes.
Because I know you were working on updates to the last minute. If you would take care of that. I appreciate that, board members.
Now,
President, Lee?
Mr. Widener, it would be appreciated if you would give us a copy of the line item budget for the school year. And I think you know what I mean. That basically is pretty big. It has all the line item accounts, okay? So you need to know what those are. And that's how when he says that he's going to build the budget, means he's going to build the budget line item by line item. But that also is something that we're responsible for knowing. So I think it would be helpful if we saw what we had, I'm trying to figure out whether it would be Mr. Widener or Mr. Maldonado, whether it be beneficial for them to get the one that you submitted in May, or the one that maybe you had that was revised, say in August, so that we'd have all the line items. Because I know the one that we submit, we're probably going to tinker with, we're gonna revise over the 3-4 months, and once we get into the school year. And so there may be some adjustments that we made. But nevertheless, whatever it was that was the line item budget,
If you look at your screen,
Yeah,
it's
this is
just
what he's
posted
referring to.
that.
that's what I'm
What he's
referring to.
accustomed to seeing.
Right.
So.
That's what I'm saying. I think you need
So
to see the
he's-
magnitude of what it is.
Walter and I have been meeting every other week for budget and finance committees, and Mr. Maldonado has provided that.
That's
And I
what,
believe that's gonna be part of the workshop, is that we will see that. But Ms. Daly, did that clarify for you, sir?
oh, it was actually a request
Yes,
to see.
that,
So if the finance committee saw it, then I think it would be helpful for the rest of the board members to get a
correct,
copy of that line.
Correct.
I saw last year's.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
yes,
And that's basically what we're operating on.
correct,
And so if you saw it, then it gives you a pretty
Correct.
big understanding of what it was. And so I'd like to have us see it. I particularly would like to see it.
Through the audit.
right.
Thank you.
Ms. Daly?
Okay, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is about the, well, I was looking in the budget as he went through it, trying to find where the $4 million that he had alluded to at our previous meeting for the supposedly new CTE campus. I don't know in which of those line items that $4 million exists. Now, the question is too, is that we have not approved a CTE campus as of yet. I have yet to see any kind of really plans for it. And my ultimate concern would be that that's going to reduce the number of students at each high school, which is going to affect our budget operation. And then it's also going to cause students to have to be transported to the campus if it's further away than Laguna, Acoma, or further away from Grant. Still will require a number of our students to be transported there, or to be driven there by parents or by a bus. So that also concerns me. And then, of course, anytime you start a new campus and you're providing all new teachers for the core classes, there's another added expense, and especially with the way the things are going in today's society. Teachers of any subject matter are hard to find. And I'd hate to have a whole new campus with substitutes or with teachers that are not geared in CTE. so that would be one of my major concerns. Before we start thinking about another campus, let's improve the ones we have. You have $4 million for CTE, we'll give it half to Grants and half to Laguna, Acoma, and then you won't have to build a whole new campus. They can utilize the core teachers right there. And then they're not forced to travel or be bused or be transported to another campus. And so I would gather that really budget-wise, it'd be more effective to improve the existing programs we have. I'm pretty sure that there's areas that Grants can build their own buildings. Laguna Acoma certainly has land in the surrounding areas that I'm pretty sure the tribal council or tribal government would annex that land for them. It's gonna mean building a whole new CTE building. I would just caution you to have a better plan of operation to answer some of the concerns and questions that not only I have, but these are coming from parents in the CTE program. They want to know what's the benefit of locating a whole new campus when they're already well endowed in the current CTE operations at each high school. So that is my major concern, and I would enjoin Mr. Maldonado to give it a closer look. And if we need to spend that $4 million, like I said, do it by percentage. Whichever CTE campus has more students, well, give them the higher percentage. But let's not waste. Let's not enact a whole new campus, which is going to affect both Grants High School and Laguna Acoma High School. We don't want to reduce the enrollment by introducing a whole new campus. So let's give it some thought before we move on that. And I certainly want really more information on what the plan is, because this kind of came up and was kind of thrown at us like, and I started to, well, who's thinking of this? Where did suggestion for this come from? And as a teacher, it just doesn't make no sense. Right. Okay, I'm sorry I took a long time. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, but let's also remember that this CTE funding idea is coming directly from the state. This isn't just an idea that has been, pulled out of nowhere also. But Mr. Maldonado, can you address her questions,
Sure,
please?
I'm happy to do that. So the $5 million, not $4, $5 million is from the bond sale of the $20 million bond sale, coupled with the $10 million we had before. We anticipated that the cost of building Mesa View was going to be significantly higher than what it was. Because it came in, rather than $57 million, it came in at $36 million. Our share of that cost went down by $5 million, which freed up this cash for building from the NMFA, from the bond sale that we sold through NMFA. So that's where the source of the funds comes from. And then the idea is around the state and around the nation, it's been proven that developing a core center, not spread out over different campuses, but developing a core campus where many of the CTE programs can be co-located, along with a cohort of excellent teachers who are going to teach the academic components of that. They have proven to be more successful than having piecemeal programs at different campuses. And I will submit to you today that what we have, even though it's a great start, there are piecemeal programs at these different campuses. In order for us to really begin to raise the profile of not just the district, but the attraction for students to come to the district, I submit that one of the things that we have to look at is going to be building its own campus, because it will have a significant draw for students. It will have a significant programmatic value for students. Employers will look at it that we're really serious about CTE programs. We can sustain it even though we might be drawing from the cohort, from the college or from the campuses. We did the same thing with early college, high school. Early College High School took a carving out of some of these students from high school into a focused program. And you saw Ms. Coles giving a report last year about the wonderful results that are being seen. It took a couple of years to get to that point, but the wonderful results are being seen because we take students who are focused on early college and college courses, put them on a college campus, they focus on that. The same process is being proposed for CTE. Now, it's premature because I promised you I would do a business plan before we even do anything, but I'm taking that 5 million out just to hold it. We're not gonna spend it for a couple of years anyway. But that 5 million for the building, that's where that's coming from, right? So there's a lot more information I need to present to you. I don't wanna have make sure that we don't dismiss it out of hand, because there's a lot of missing pieces that you don't have yet, right? And Ms. Lee is correct, the state is really pushed on this. When we went to Washington early March, Ms. Jones and I met with our 2 senators and our representative. They invited us to apply for $1.2 million for building the CTE program, because they're very interested in doing that, and $600,000 in applying for equipping the system. So there's a lot of interest out there. We need to kind of bite at the apple and grab when we can. So that's why the interest in that. But we have a long way to go. So I see, Ms. Daly, do you have another question?
To some extent, I do agree with you about the move for CTE, but I would still bet that improving the ones that we have now, ensuring that it's going to continue at each campus, and we're not certain if just building a whole new campus for such a small area. I'm pretty sure they're looking at cities and communities that have businesses to support them citywide. And so, you know, that would make sense for them to have singular campus for CTE. I mean, that's the way colleges work, junior colleges. And I can see, you know, the benefit of that. But right now, looking at our CTE programs, they would benefit more by vamping those up a little bit, and so that they would have the necessary equipment, necessary supplies, and I kind of disagree as far as the teaching. You talked about excellent teachers at CTE. Well, right now I think we have excellent teachers anyway.
Okay, Miss Daly. Miss Daly, I'm gonna interrupt because this was talking about, you know, this is a first run through looking at budget information. And I think that we all are gonna look forward at a later date, diving into what CTE is for our district. So I think at this time, we'll stop this discussion and continue on. Mr. Widener.
But,
Yes, sir.
I beg your indulgence, Madam President. I think what she saw was that, you know, the slide seemed to indicate that there was some definitiveness to it. So that's something that you'll need to bring back to the board.
Absolutely.
When we're talking about what it is we're trying to do. And that's basically our role is to
Agreed.
is to develop a perspective for the district.
Correct.
What it is that are the strategies we're going to take for our students based upon our plans. So we probably want to explore that a bit more, this at the next go around, and we'll
The
get to
workshop,
that, all of this, okay?
Correct. Thank you. Mr. Widener.
At this time, as I mentioned when we started the meeting, I did want to kind of have item D presentation mobile. At this time, we do have our presenter for item D. So I would like to have our audit presentation at this time, and then we'll come back to our calendar presentation C after the audit presentation.
Thank you.
So this is Byron Manning and Chris Manning of Manning Accounting. They've been our auditors for the last 5 years now, I believe. And so they just completed the audit for school year 22 to 23. We presented to the, gave you a preview. Now that it was approved by the Office of the State Auditor and published, now they have to make their final review, the final report to you, and then there is an action item later on the agenda to accept it. So I'll turn the screen over to Mr. Manning. Oh, can't hear you, Byron.
Driving?
Nope, can't hear you.
Is it a car?
Huh? He just got to Utah, I think was.
Can't hear you, Byron. Chris, can you help him out?
If it's on airplay, he won't be able to. In his
Oh, it might be going through his car.
airplane, airplay.
Is he
Happened to
connected
me.
through his car's audio? Because if he's connected, Mr. Manning, if you're connected with your car audio, you might have to disconnect.
We don't need to see him, we just hear him.
Take his Bluetooth off.
If you want to call in, you can do that too.
He takes his Bluetooth off. Or if he's plugged in.
He's trying, but
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Does it help?
sign language. I think he's trying, but
Somebody else there.
That's him again. Simon.
yeah, Mr. Manning.
Can you hear us now, Byron?
You just need his audio.
He can hear you, but obviously his audio is not working.
Okay. He logged in on his iPhone, Chris.
Yeah, I told him just to call in.
Yeah, call is fine. I don't know how we did this years ago.
Right? This is much better.
Almost.
You can call my phone and.
Speaker.
You can call my phone and put it on speaker.
And put him on speakerphone.
That'd be great.
Byron, why don't you call my phone and we'll put you on speakerphone?
Mike. For his phone. Do we have a mic?
Yeah, they're all right here.
All right, can you hear us now, Byron?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll put the phone over by you guys.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
All right, so our president has the phone now.
Thank you for being here with us. We're sorry about the crazy technology these days, right?
Well, I guess I shouldn't complain sitting in a parking lot in Moab, Utah.
Very, very good, very good. We're glad you could join us from Moab.
Under the arches.
Try to, I'm gonna see if I can get it where I can share the screen, bring up the audit. Can you see the cover page of your audit
Yes, sir.
on your screen? Okay. All right, we'll start there. And thanks for having us. We'll try to just touch on the highlights, and then Chris will cover kind of the back end of the audit, the part everybody always wants to hear about. But the audit report, the main purpose of an audit is to give you an opinion on your financial statements. So on pages 4 through 6, you'll actually see your audit report. And on that, you have the opinion you're always looking for, and that is an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that you can receive. I do encourage board members to read through the opinion, so you have a basis for it. It kind of walks you through a basis of the opinion, responsibilities of management, the auditor's responsibilities, and some of the supplementary and required supplementary information that's there. But the key thing is that you have an unmodified opinion, which is a clean financial statement opinion. On page 7 of the audit report, you've got your statement of net position, which, thinking about it from a business point of view, is your balance sheet. And it shows you the overall position of the district, including all of its buildings and assets, all the liabilities. One thing that I point out, you do have a total net position down the second to last line of about 17.2 million, which is good. Many districts have a negative net position because of the liabilities for the ERB and the RHC that the state makes you put on your financial statements. The net liabilities that Grant Schools shows is $96.15 million that's on your balance sheet that really is not a liability for grants. It's a paper entry, so nobody's going to show up at the district asking to get their pension payment. So that is one thing that I point out for you to see. On page 8 is your statement of activities, which is an income statement presented in a real funny format. The big thing is down the third to last item on the bottom is your change in net position for the year, which was $14.4 million, which a lot of that change is related to estimate changes in the ERB and RHC items that are carried. So those things swing back and forth. Next year, they can show a negative amount there, but they really don't affect your operations. When you get into pages 9, 10, and 11, that's a balance sheet like you're kind of used to seeing as you were talking about funds. On your funds in the operational fund, the 11,000 fund, that is the primary one that you work from. So your balance sheet, your current cash balance is about 16.2 million. You've got to do a little addition to get there, and that is made up of your cash your interfund receivables, less your accrued payroll liabilities, which are basically health checks at year end for ERB or NIPSI insurance that haven't been sent out yet. But overall, a good cash position. On pages 13, 14, and 15, you have your statement of revenues, expenditures, and fund changes in fund balance, which is your income statement by a fund. Down about 2/3 of the way down on your operational fund, you will see that your revenues exceeded expenditures last year in the operational fund by about $2.3 million. And on page 15, in the very last column, your revenues exceeded expenditures by about $6.1 million. You also sold $4 million in bonds, and you returned $304,617 to grantors. These are some of those old funds that have been sitting on the books that the funds are no longer active. And so it's the tail end of Steve and them getting the books cleaned up, those funds going back to state and federal programs because you couldn't get budget for those things anymore. Many of them have been sitting on there for years and years and years. And so it's cleaning it up so that by next year, your financials will actually show the active funds that you have and the operations in them. On pages 24 starts your notes to the financial statements, 24 through 58. And again, I'm always going to recommend that board members read through this. There's quite a bit there. Take them to bed with you at night. That'll get you to sleep quite often. And several weeks, there'll be several weeks of you being able to go to sleep quick. But there's some good information there. You'll understand some of the regulations and the items that the district has to follow with government accounting requirements and overall accounting requirements. And you will also see a lot more detail on items. For example, you go down a little ways and you get to cash. And so you get to a little more detail what makes up the cash and investments that are there. You get to your receivables, your interfunds. Those are dealing with loans made from the operational fund to funds that you're waiting on reimbursements from the state, which can add up to quite a bit of money, as you see there, or negative funds that are out there. So that's why I recommend you take the time to kind of look through that area. It will give you probably a lot more information than all the spreadsheet information that you'll see in your financial statements. Now, we'll jump clear back to towards the end. Pages 119 and 120 is your second report that goes into the financial statements. And on those, we're going to turn some time over to Chris, and he's going to walk you through some of these reports and your findings.
Okay, so we'll make that just a little bit bigger. Awesome. All right, so this report is your report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. This is the report where we give our opinion on the internal controls of the district and whether or not there were any findings. Now, with findings, there are 3 levels. There are your most severe, which is material weakness. Your next severe is going to be a significant deficiency. And the last and least severe is going to be the other matters. Now, I always give a definition for the material weakness and significant deficiency, so that way you have an idea of what we are talking about. So a material weakness is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in internal control, such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the entity's financial statements will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis. We did have two findings which we consider to be material weaknesses. These are 2023-01 and 02. And here shortly, I'll go over in detail each of the findings. A significant deficiency is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in internal control that is less severe than a material weakness, yet important enough to merit attention by those charged with governance. We had two findings which we consider to be significant deficiencies. These are 2023-03 and 04. And then in the other matter category, the last and least severe of the three findings, we had findings 2023-06 through 014. Okay, the next report. The next report is your report on compliance for each major federal program. So this is very similar to the other report, only this is dealing specifically with your federal programs and a single audit. There are the same level of findings that are possible: material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and other matters. And we did have, during our review, we did have one finding which fell in the significant deficiency, and that's going to be 2023-005. This next schedule is going to be your schedule of expenditure of federal awards, and it lists each of the federal programs that you have and the dollar amount that was expended. And then you also have the listing of your federal funds. So those funds which have a 1 in the parentheses afterwards, those are your major funds, and those are the funds that were subject to the single audit process. And the district had $26,556,787 in federal funds in the audit year. And that then takes us to the schedule of expenditure of federal awards. This cover page here kind of gives a brief summary of the audit and the financial statements and the federal awards. As you see, it restates the opinion that we issued. In this case, it was unmodified, which is the best opinion. Whether or not there were any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies detected, and whether there was any non-compliance that was material to the financial statement. And then does the same thing for the federal awards, again, going through the whether or not any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were noted, and that we had an unmodified opinion for your federal awards. Then we have the identification of your major programs. So this here lists your federal programs that were subject to the single audit, the dollar threshold that the district had to distinguish between type A and type B programs, and whether or not you qualified as a low-risk auditee. All right, so now we get to the actual findings, and I'll go over the formatting of the findings so that way you have an understanding of how that they're laid out and why they are laid out in the way that they are. And then for all the findings after the first one, I'll just go over the condition. So the first section there is the heading and the title of the finding. That's going to be 2023-01. Tells you that this is the first finding of the current year. There in brackets, you'll see 2018-005. That indicates that this finding has been one that the district has had since 2018. And this is the internal controls over district cash. There in parentheses, you have the finding level. In this case, this is the material, one of the two material weaknesses. And because it is a repeat finding from the prior year, it is repeated and modified. The first section of the findings is going to be the criteria. The criteria will list either the NMSA, the NMAC, the PSAB, or the federal guideline that is the controlling language, the controlling rule for the finding. And then there within the statutory language, we will try to bold the specific section that applies to your finding. So there you can see that while this NMAC has multiple sections, we highlighted J and K, showing that those are the sections that are specific to this finding. Then you have the condition, and this is where we lay out what were the issues that we found. In this case, there's multiple bullet points. We had multiple stale dated checks totaling $4,300. We carried balances and object codes related to bank accounts which have been closed for several years. We improperly recorded payments on NMFA bonds. We had credit amounts which had not been properly recorded. We weren't properly and completely reconciling our cash accounts on a timely basis. And the general ledger cash did not properly tie to final cash report that was submitted to the state. We had a difference of $381,662. On any repeat finding, you're going to have a quick blurb after the condition in which we state how this finding in the current year relates to the finding in the prior year and whether or not any progress has been made. So you can either have, in essence, no progress, a regression, or progress. The next section is going to be the cause. And this is what is, in our opinion, caused the district to have this finding. Then there's going to be the effect. And this is the effect that this finding has either on compliance or the district's financials. Then we have the auditor's recommendation. This is what we as auditors have recommended the district do to correct this finding. And then the last part, this is the part that I always tell board members, this is the most important for you if you want to follow up with the district. This is where you will go to see the district's response to the finding, the specific corrective action plan that the district has laid out, their timeline that they have placed for completing the corrective action plan, and the employee who is responsible for that corrective action plan. So say in 2 months you want to follow up on any of the findings, this is where you would go to see who it is that you would want to speak to and how far along in the progress they have gone. The next finding is going to be the improper recording and maintenance of fixed assets. It is the second of the two material weaknesses. Now, this one has a lot of statutory language to it. It's nearly 2 pages long. And so, like I said, you'll want to look for those bolded sections. But during our review of fixed asset detail, the district had not properly added the construction in progress projects. Items which were added in the furniture, fixture, and equipment had been properly added. However, not all of the additions had been properly flagged to depreciate. And the district had not performed an annual inventory of its fixed assets in excess of $5,000. And therefore, the board did not certify the fixed asset inventory. The next finding is going to be 2023-03. This is a repeat from the prior year. This is our lack of internal controls over payroll liability. It is a significant deficiency. During our review, liability balances in the 21013 object code of $108,000 contained improper debit balances. Other liability account balances, debits and credits were created attempted to reconcile the cash, which were improper. And no review of payroll liability accounts is systematically reviewed by the district. The district has made some progress in the area. There were more issues in the prior year with improper accounting balances and larger amounts. The next is the second of the two significant deficiencies, and this is the failure to timely remit federal withholding taxes as required. We didn't make our tax payments on time in the prior year, and this led to the district being assessed a fine of $242,000 by the IRS, and we issued payment of $204,000 to the IRS. So in the prior year, we had 3 instances where there was a late payment. So this is something hopefully will be corrected in the current year. This next section is going to be your federal award findings. We only had one. It was a significant deficiency, and this is the non-compliance with the Davis-Bacon Act and capital expenditure requirements. Over the last 2 years, many districts had this, which is finding which we hadn't seen in many years, and that was due to the ESSER funds being permitted to do, and the federal funds being used in capital projects and construction, which normally they haven't been. And so not all of the rules and requirements of Davis-Bacon were known due to the fact that it's not something that is regularly done by the school district. Now, the one area where federal findings are a little bit different than all the others is we have a section for question costs. So it is possible with a federal finding that we could have question costs. In this case, we didn't have any. And now we get into the other matter findings. So these are what were listed as the NMSA findings. And at this point, I always want to remind the board that New Mexico has what we call a zero materiality rule. And what that means is if we find a single instance of non-compliance or a single dollar in variation, we are required by the state audit rule to list those findings in the financial report. Not all of these findings are material to your financials, and that's why they are listed as other matters. And many times they don't actually involve any dollar amounts. And in many other states, these findings may not be listed in the financials. But since New Mexico has a zero materiality rule, we are required to list these. And so that is why in the condition, we try to specify the number of instances and the dollar value, so that way you as board members can make a determination of whether this is maybe just a normal human error that you're going to have when you have tens of thousands of transactions in a school district done by maybe as many as 100 different people. So that's something to keep in mind as we go over these next findings. So the first finding is our purchase order and authorization. This is the most common finding in school districts due to the PED requiring school districts to have a purchase order before you have committed any funds. Most other municipalities and agencies only have a requirement to have a purchase order prior to the check being issued. So during a review of activity cash disbursements in one of the 25 items reviewed, an invoice for $140 was received, and the purchase order was not authorized until 5 days after. In our review of disbursements, we also had a purchase order after the fact. An invoice for $500 was dated on January 19th. The purchase order was authorized on February the 3rd. The next finding is going to be our improper budgetary controls. This is a repeat finding from 2021 to the current year under audit. This one is during a review of budgets, the district had expenditures in excess of budget in the following funds. So each of these funds listed, we exceeded our budgetary authority, and the budgetary authority assessed by the PED is not at the fund level, but at the function level. And so we had $966,576 expended above budget across those multiple funds. The next finding is going to be our missing I-9 documentation. This is a repeat from 2019. In one of the 25 personnel files reviewed, the I-9 form is not properly filled out. So as you can see, this is obviously not a financial issue, but a matter of proper record keeping and paperwork being filled out properly. The next finding is going to be the improper approval of budget adjustment. During our testing of budget adjustments, we discovered 4 of the instances in 12 in which the district entered the budget adjustment into the accounting system, but forgot to present the budget adjustments to the board. The board had given approval to the business office to move budgets without waiting for approval from the board, but they were required to present the amounts after the fact to the board. The next is going to be the late payment and reporting of employer contributions for your employee retirement and retiree healthcare. The ERB and the RHC require that reports and payments be made by a specific date. In one of the 3 months tested, the ERB contributions was transmitted on the 2nd of the following month. In 2 of the 3 months tested, the district submitted its retiree healthcare report on the 22nd and the 23rd rather than the 10th. And in 1 of the 3 months tested, we submitted its payment for the retiree healthcare on the 22nd of the month instead of the 15th. The next finding is the timeliness of deposits. This is a repeat from 21. In one of our 25 items tested, the deposit was not made within 24 hours of receipt. $15 was received on May the 2nd and deposited on June the 5th. Again, this is an area in which the PED has imposed a strict requirement on school districts. You have only 24 hours or 1 business day to make a deposit if you do not have an exception to that rule from the PED. Again, most districts or municipalities will have in a timely matter requirement rather than a specific deadline. The next one is going to be our improper reimbursement of travel expenses. And for the 6 items reviewed, the district did not reimburse them properly their employees. 2 employees were not paid the partial day per diem of $20. And in 2 instances, there was no travel request filled out prior to the trip. Now, in this one, I know there's been a lot of confusion, and I have seen some of the ASBO community boards, and I'm thinking of putting together a video to kind of help guide school districts and all of our business offices with understanding the Travel and Per Diem Act properly. And so here, maybe in the next month, I might have that completed for you guys. Next finding is going to be the equity and athletics reporting. This is, again, a deadline issue. The district did not submit its equity and athletics report to the PED for the 22-23 school year by August 31st. And then we have 2014. This is late filing of the audit report. The audit was not completed by November 15th. And the final section here is going to be the summary of prior audit findings. So this lists each of the findings that you had in the prior audit year and their current status, whether they were repeated or whether they were resolved. So they are broken out in that same way, whether they are financial statements, whether they're federal awards, and those NMSA findings. And you'll see at the end of each of those findings, you will see either resolved or repeated and renumbered. And so you can see for each of those findings, the vast majority of them were a repeat from the prior year. The one which we had resolved was 22-011, and that was failure to complete an annual physical inventory and complete certification by the board. So that ends my presentation. Are there any questions?
Okay. And we had a couple of state auditor letters that came to us where we were asked to review additional things outside of the normal process, and where we're asked to check on these specific items that came from the state auditor's office. One of those items dealt with board involvement in personnel issues and items of that sort. And so here I'll speak as a board member myself. I sit on the San Juan College Board of Trustees. Also, it's an area, my brother, who sat on the Central Consolidated Board for 24 years, was on the state and national boards, did a lot of training with boards in this area. The law some years ago changed on what board members were to be involved in. And one of the things that significantly changed is in personnel or disputes and issues like that. The board has one personnel issue in the district, and that is the superintendent. Other than that, all other personnel issues are the purview of the superintendent and not of the board. So in those trainings, what is normally taught is if someone comes to you as a board member with an issue or with, let's say, an issue with a principal or an issue with a teacher, the proper method within New Mexico now is that you would contact the superintendent, and there you would discuss with the superintendent any issues that may have come to your attention as a board member, or anything from a programmatic point of view or something. Then from that point, the superintendent may work with you to maybe sit down. Let's say it was a principal and you guys, as the three, talk about that. Or the superintendent will let the board member know that they would check into it and get back to you with it. But that is the proper method now for a board to be involved, whether it's with me at the college level or you at the school district level. We're a high level 40,000 foot view of what's going on. And we're not supposed to be involved in the day-to-day operations. And so we were just asked, because of a couple of those things that came to us from the state auditor, to make sure everyone understood that, because there's always new board members. There's always those questions. And as I say, 15 years ago, it was a lot different, and the board statutorily had oversight on many of those issues also. So the things that Chris covered and I covered, does anybody have any questions or comments or other things that they would like to bring up at this time?
Thank you so much, Mr. Manning and other Mr. Manning board members. Are there any questions or comments at this time?
Well, there's two words. He said recommendation and opinion.
So, Mr. Manning, would you clarify for Board Member Jaramillo the difference in the wording of
Yeah,
recommendation
they mentioned the recommendations and then they said some opinions.
and then opinions?
Okay. Opinions, the only place that we really get into opinions on an audit is two of the financial reports. That is, the first one I kind of pointed out to you, the opinion at the front, that's an opinion overall on the financial statements, that they're fairly presented. It does not mean they're perfect because we didn't look at every transaction, but it means statistically the things that we looked at, the numbers are going to be close enough that management or board would not make different decisions if you were given a set of perfect financial statements and a set that had some errors in it, that when you're dealing with millions of dollars in a line item, it may be off $65,000 for our own checkbook. That sounds big. But when you're looking at millions, would you really make a decision different if one is 14,455,000 versus 14,430,000? The idea is no, it wouldn't change management or board decisions. So that and the opinion on your federal programs, that for the programs we looked at and the testing, there was, they were also well presented and followed according to the statutes, except for the one finding we found, which would not alter issues with your financial statements. Now, a recommendation is we're not management, so we cannot make management decisions, or it would affect our ability to do audits in our independence. So we can give a recommendation how to correct a finding, but in the end, it is management who has to decide on the final method to do it and how they're going to implement it. So in the findings, that's why we give recommendations. And then it's up to management to lay out whether they're going to follow in basic that recommendation, how to support it, but in more detail. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. You bet.
Any other questions?
Madam President, I have a couple of questions. In the first one is when it says it's I guess discover that it's existing and then it's renumbered. That means you're carrying it on to the next year to get it resolved by renumbering it. Is that the case?
I couldn't quite hear the question.
Ms. Daly, will you restate the question?
Okay, in your report, there are, when you get to the findings, it talks about, or it has them indicated as renumbered. Okay, now but it existed maybe the previous year. So in essence, by renumbering it.
In the report, things being renumbered. So she's asking for clarification what the renumbering is.
Okay, and then it kind of ties out to how Chris laid out to begin with. That first number, like that's on the screen right now, 2023-014. Every year, that first number is going to change based on the year of the audit. So 2023 tells you always that it's from the 2023 audit. The second number tells you it's the 14th finding in the listing of the findings. That number in bracket, that number will always stay the same if it repeats to a new year. that gives you the original year that finding originated. In this case, 2022 is the first year that that finding consecutively was in your financial statements. And it was the 12th finding within that year. That's why the numbers will change if they're carried over from one year to the next, because next year's will begin 2024 whatever the sequence the findings are put in. Does that answer your question?
Ms. Daly, were you
Yes,
able
thank
to
you.
hear?
Yes, I was. Can you
And
hear
your
me?
second question? Yes, ma'am. Your second question?
The second question is, being on the audit committee, why did we not hold a meeting to at least have a preview of what was the findings that you had already maybe discovered? We only had the one original audit meeting, and then after that, we haven't had any, or I haven't been informed of any.
Ms. Daly, we did have the audit meeting the end of January. I believe it was January 30th, and you were unable to attend that meeting at that time. And Mr. Manning gave us a very thorough, not quite as short of a run through at that time.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I'll go look back on my announcements or notices about the meeting. But thank you, Mr. Manning, for that explanation. It does cause some concern for some of the findings that you did have, especially the ones that keep reoccurring. But I am hoping that we're looking into that we're going to get those findings resolved, and that we're not keep carrying it on to the next year and the next year and the next year. So thank you very much for your detailed report.
Thank you, Ms. Daly.
And
Mr. Manning,
I'll-
I think we have another question from the board member here. Oh, it's a comment?
It's a request.
A request.
But go ahead. Mr. Manning, continue with what you were going to say.
And I was going to comment on a few of the items this year. After we knew it was going to be late, that those were setting out, we made sure the district corrected the items before we were going to finalize the report. So like many of the items in the cash that have been carrying over from those old debt accounts, we waited until the district had got all the journal entries so we could get them into the audit also, and it got cleaned up. Some various items like that, we just said, let's wait, let's get them clean. Steve and his staff did get the journal entries done. They did get the things cleaned up. So I would expect this year with this audit that we're already getting ready to start again, that many of those things should go away this year.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Dr. Guy.
Just a matter of board acquisition of I've not seen the complete report, so we need to make arrangements for me to review that. That's all that is, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Manning. And Mr. Manning, is there anything further? Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
I was just saying thank you for allowing us to present, and we're always available for questions or through the year, and not just during the audit.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Have a good trip.
Thank you. We will.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Mr. Widener.
President Lee, at this time, we would like to go back to item C under our presentations. Mrs. Jacqueline Jones has been working very hard with our stakeholders, our teachers, our staff, our principals, formulating next year's academic calendar. It's been going on the last several months. We've been kind of going through the process. And then we had the 180-day rule that came from the PED about a month ago. And so we have reconfigured and reworked our calendar. So at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Jacqueline Jones, and she'll be presenting on the calendar.
Good evening, Madam President, Board members, Mr. Superintendent. In your packets, there is a proposed calendar for next school year. It is labeled calendar B because of the process we went through to get there. We did met with stakeholders from each site on February 22nd. When we met there, we had a proposed calendar that mirrored this year's calendar. This is a starting point for them. And then a blank calendar, and kind of gave them some homework. There were some discussions about which holidays were important, or which things we should look at changing, and what would be best for our students that would be in those classrooms, and trying to make the best out of 5-day work weeks. This is prior to the secretary, of course, making the announcement for 180 days and seats. So through that, they went back to their sites. We had some creative calendars that came back, and then we had, I think we ended up with 4, and then we had to whittle it down to 2 that we wanted to send out for vote. So B ended up going out for vote, and C ended up going out for vote. We did send those out with each staff member to each site, each department. We ended up with 386 total votes this year for the calendars, which I think is a substantial amount of votes compared to prior years. The total was 226 votes for calendar B and 160 for calendar C. After the ruling from Secretary Romero, at the principals meeting last week, Wednesday, we went over the calendars again, determined with the principals that the most important things at their site were like start days, end dates. They didn't want to push into June. The holidays that they thought were most, that the majority had voted on, that's what we stayed with, as far as kind of some of the options were either the full week for Thanksgiving or working Monday, Tuesday, and just having Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, and the Christmas break. Those were kind of some of the determining factors for teachers that swung calendar B into the one that got the most votes. So working with the principals, we determined that we needed to get rid of or change the way we approached, not get rid of, but change the way we approached professional development. We had 5 days that students would not be at school. There would be professional development for teachers and staff members. And so with that, we put all of those days back in. So we had to add those days back in. We were at 175 days on the old draft. We had to take those 5 days, add them back into the calendar, bring us up to 180 instructional days, as the secretary has passed down. And with that, we went in and put in the last Wednesday of every month, with the exception of November, December, and May, as a half day for students. Professional development will happen in the afternoon. We will dismiss, I believe, at 1 and 1:30. We're gonna work on that schedule for those principals so they can begin planning. That way, and with students being in the seats that long, we can count it as an instructional day, and we can still have some meaningful professional development on sites with early warning systems and their professional learning communities, making sure that we're looking pretty deeply at those students that we need to reach out to. So that will give staff at each site time to work collectively. I know the high school has had some issues where they can't give the entire English department a prep at the same time to work together because it just throws off the matrix. So this gives those, especially the high schools, time to really collaborate with departments or grade levels and really dive into what's happening with their students. So this is the calendar that is before you. And I mean, yes, you guys have a vote on that later. Any questions regarding our calendar?
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Board members, questions?
Well, I'm just trying to, with my blind eyes, trying to figure this out. And that's taking a little bit of time. So what is the difference between, in terms of instructional days, between this year and this coming year?
So last year, we were able to.
I mean, this current year,
This current year,
and as compared to what's gonna happen this.
currently, we had hundred and 74 instructional days with professional development built in. Secretary came in and said that we had to have 180 instructional days, so we had to take some of those professional learning days out and put student learning days in.
And the half
So-
days
so
or
we've
what?
gone from 174 to 180 for students. And actually, it's 178 because we can count parent-teacher conference first semester and parent-teacher conference second semester count as instructional time for students. So there's 178 days that students will be in seats with the two parent-teacher conference days that make up the 180.
Okay, so I'm understanding that the primary solution was to reduce down to create those half days.
Yes, sir.
And that was to get you to 180 days,
Yes, sir.
and however we calculate that, yeah, okay.
While still allowing for the professional development.
Yeah, it's still professional.
And there are two, you will see August 6th and January 6th are kind of an orange color. Those are union negotiated days for the teachers to have classroom planning time. And so those are still in there. And we will have a whole staff professional development day on August 5th, full staff, and May 27th. And then those other kind of light green colors on the last Wednesday of each month are the half days, with the exception of November, December, and May.
What are the orange?
That is the cultural day, so that is 240 day employees will work, but staff and students, the rest of the staff and students will have a day off. I assume you meant September 19th.
I guess that's the only, no, there's one in January.
January 3rd.
January 3rd is a 240 work day, so the staff members that work year round are required to come in on the 3rd, but students and teachers are not. So that would be maintenance, central office staff, some secretaries, high school principals, the employees that are on a 240-day contract have to work on those orange days in order to get to their 240. But teachers and students are not.
So that's you.
Yes.
You have to come in.
That's
All
all
these
of
guys
us.
here.
That's all of us.
You mean you're gonna have to stop your skiing and get back
Yes.
these loads early?
Or we'll have to take a vacation.
That's what we got to do yesterday
And it could be
too.
us too.
Or
That's like
do
what
you allow them
yesterday,
to
yeah.
take leave?
240,
You
the
can
employees
take-
vacation.
They can take
Take
that,
vacation.
Yeah.
so, okay.
Oh, I see, it's during the winter break.
It's the first Friday of the year.
I see.
Yeah, I know the public wants to know, and some public members will want to know, and some parents will want to know, how many days of actual instruction? And some of them will say, well, didn't the state say you're gonna have to have 180 days of true instruction? And that's what this calendar, and you will be able to educate the community about that, that we are going to do that. Okay,
Yes, sir, this calendar reflects the 180 days required.
2 of which are
Parent-teacher
parent-teacher
conference, yes.
conference.
I know it's been an age-old problem that teachers always faces, that you always see me doing something else, disrupting class time.
It's true. And that was when we were looking at the calendar, that was, the principals and their teacher representatives that they brought were like, can we please just have 5 days a week? Like, we just want 5 days without interruption. So when they were looking at placement of like parent-teacher conference or things like that, they were like, can we do it here? This would be less disruptive. So we listened to all of those opinions as they came in because we know that they're trying to have as many full instructional weeks as possible.
How many full instructional weeks do we have?
I did not count those, but we gained a lot by taking out those 5 days.
The first semester is 89 days.
Well, if you go into August, I'm looking at those days, I have no colors, and so I'm just being simplistic about it. So the 19th to the 23rd is
Is a full week.
Full
So
week
the-
of instruction.
The 12th through the 16th is a full week also, That's just the week that, the reason that the 12th is pink is because that's the day that our pre-K classes will start. So pre-K classes don't start with everybody else. So they'll actually have students in seats every day, the 12th through the 16th, the 19th through the 23rd, and the 26th through the 30th. The students will just dismiss early on the 28th. We will dismiss students at 1 or 1:30 on the 28th, depending on elementary or high school.
Now, what is that? That's an afternoon PD.
That is an afternoon.
So every
Last.
last Wednesday.
With the exception of November, December, and May. Because November, December are short months anyway, there are only 15 instructional days in each of those months. So with the exception of those 2 months in May.
So I'm just looking at the calendar in terms of the full weeks of instruction. Those are always ideal, and what we're saying is that we didn't have as many in the like this current year. And this one is supposed to have more, full 5 days of instruction. Okay, I'm gonna look at September. The 6th, what's the yellow? Parent-teacher conference.
Parent-teacher conference.
Okay. And the 2nd is,
Labor Day.
Labor Day.
So that is the district is closed. That's the ones that are purple.
Purple.
District is closed.
okay. Then September 19th is the
Cultural.
Cultural Day.
And on that day, says cultural day, no students, no staff work day, no staff work day for 200 with the others, you guys. Okay. Going back to August 6th and 7th, what are we going to do on the 6th?
So the 6th is the union negotiated day that teachers have to have in their classrooms. They have to have a day in their classroom each semester. So if you look at the green day in August 5th, that is professional development district-wide. The 6th is the union negotiated day for teachers to have in their classrooms. The 7th is the day students would start. So all students will start on the 7th, pre-K students start on the 12th.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Jones.
Very welcome.
Mr. Widener.
Mrs. Daly didn't have a question.
No, I don't.
Thank you, ma'am.
That concludes our presentations for tonight. I do have a superintendent's report that I can keep very brief. It has 2 parts on there. Part of it includes the spring budget conference. I believe Steve and I kind of covered that at the beginning. We did get $200 more per unit, and we are working to build that budget. So mostly for the superintendent's report, I will talk about the all-staff professional development day that we had today. We've been without students since last Thursday, had kind of an extended Easter vernal holiday break. And so on Monday, the 240-day employees had to work. So the staff and I were here meeting and working on kind of plans for next year. And then today we had all staff return, no students, for a professional development day today. And I have shared kind of the schedule of workshops. We had 4 different workshops today that were relevant for teachers. There were math teachers together. There was social emotional learning groups. There was art teachers working together, music teachers working together. Our special education staff was involved in a training and involved in PECS training. We took the physics in a box curriculum that the board talked about last month. We took that to the teachers. They vetted it, looked through it, went through it. We had PLC meetings. We had, using AI, using ChatGPT, just a whole lot of really good informative sessions. And so the directors took some pictures as they went to different workshops. There were activities. As you know, this year we've done a lot with our social and emotional learning and continued that. We now have school-based site teams that are working on SEL to support the kids and their needs. You see here, we had our CTE teachers gathering. They were learning about how to be a DECA advisor, how to be a BPA advisor, FFA advisor, what to do for your membership and paying your dues and traveling with students. Our science teachers gathered and talked about science fair and the recommendations of what we're gonna do for the science fair in the future. Music teachers were talking about the trajectory of the music programs and how, we start with elementary music and what are we doing at middle school and into high school. And so there's kind of some pictures from the different workshops. It was a really good day. I hope that if you talk to the staff, they would tell you that. Unfortunately, there's not Mr. Miller's here, but he was in SEL workshops. But I commended Dr. Martin when I think the caliber of the workshops was very high quality, and I hope it was relevant to our teachers and that they went home with good information. So that was today, and that kind of concludes the superintendent's report.
Mr. Widener, if I may share with everybody, it was a fantastic day. I attended for a few sessions this morning, and the caliber of what you and your team brought for the teachers and the staff was really, really exciting to see. And everybody that I spoke with had a lot of really positive feedback. Now, mind you, I was only there till noon, but it was wonderful to pop into the different rooms and see the activity and involvement by everybody. So as a board member, I thought it was really great seeing everybody engaged so well, and it was all so relevant to what was going on.
One really impressive thing that kind of trend that we've kind of stepped into, we have a lot of talents within our district. And so Dr. Martin asked, would you like to present a workshop? Do you want to talk about, your math curriculum? Do you want to, and so it's really neat to see GCCS leaders and teachers presenting these workshops and showing their best practices to their colleagues. And I think it's kind of impactful that way. So I'm very proud of the workshops we had today. We also had a module of the new computer configuration. So if you're a third grade teacher at Milan, you could see what your screen and computer setup could be moving into the future, and just lots of hands-on good instruction.
I thought it was great. Board members?
Wish I had attended, but I had family things.
We'll get you next time, Dr. Guy.
All right, I believe we can move on to action items.
Yes.
Mr. Widener, item A.
The item A, action item, I'm gonna let Mr. Triplehorn talk about this. This was presented in our finance committee meeting last Thursday. And so I'll let Mr. Triplehorn talk about the need the need for 4 HVAC units at Los Alamitos.
Been a long day, all right. So, good evening, Madam President, board members, Mr. Widener. So it's actually 4 boilers that we're replacing. They're at end of life. 2 of them are currently not operational. 2 of them are needing repairs that cost more than the replacement. So the system is currently functioning with the boilers that we have in place. And so the lead time on them are about 4 to 6 weeks. So it shouldn't pose an issue because we're hopefully not going to get too cold anymore. And so that's what that is for. And they're just basically at end of life. So they last about 6 or 7 years.
And I know several of you have been at Los Alamitos and there are parts of the hall that are drafty and cold, and this will help to fix that. So I would recommend to approve.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve to replace the 4 boiler units at Los Alamitos in the amount of $82,973.90?
I'll make the motion to approve to replace the HVAC of 4 units at Los Alamitos in the amount of $82,973.90.
And is there a second?
I second the motion to approve installation purchase.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve to replace the HVAC of 4-unit boilers at Los Alamitos in the amount of $82,973.90. Is there any discussion? All right, thank you. Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye. The motion carries. And our next item B, Mr. Widener.
Mrs. Jones just presented on the 24-25 academic calendar. Again, there have been several months going on into this calendar build. Our partners, our educational partners from LDOE, Acoma DOE, the Navajo Nation are very interested in what our calendar looks like, as well as our partners from NMSU. And so we are ready to have a calendar. So I recommend with, you said 363 votes on calendar B?
260 or 220?
I recommend,
220.
I recommend to approve calendar B as our official calendar, so we can share that with our partners.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Lloyd, did you vote for B?
For calendar B, yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion to approve to adopt the 24-25 calendar B that has been presented and majority vote of the stakeholders that participated approved?
Probably in between.
Ms. Daly?
I'm sorry, Madam President. Yes, was this provided to both, all the staff and they had the opportunity to vote on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All school sites, Mr. Widener just indicated, were presented with this calendar. And of the two choices, Mrs. Jones indicated calendar B and calendar C were the two options presented to vote on. And it was calendar B, the one that we are presenting right now for adoption, that was the majority approved by the staff. Did that answer your question, Ms. Daly?
She's muted.
You're muted, ma'am. All right, is
No more
there a motion?
questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve to adopt the 2024-2025 school calendar B as presented?
Make the motion to consider the approval of the 2024 to 2025 school calendar.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve to adopt the 2024-2025 school calendar B. Is there any further discussion?
The only discussion, Madam President, I would want to, what I consider to be a critical one is the Veterans Day. We do not have that this time. However, this is the year of elections. And so we are taking a day off in November for elections. And I think that that's a trade-off that we have to make, is to try to sustain our 180 days and recognize that that's something that we have to accommodate this current year. Whether we do that in future years is up to the district and the board and the community, but that's what I want us to point out, is that we don't have that this year, and it's just that the state has extended the number of hours, days we're supposed to have, and that's our compromise. That's my understanding.
That is correct, and there were, that came up during discussions with the groups that we had. And we had veterans in that group, and the veterans in that group said that they would rather have students in seats learning about Veterans Day than have the day off. So that's why we opted to go with the 5th and not with Veterans Day. That was consensus in the room.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, you are correct.
Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mrs. Daly?
Yes,
Mr. Jaramillo?
yes,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, motion carries. Item C, Mr. Widener.
Item C is our audit. We just heard the presentation of our audit from the 22-23 school year. And so I recommend that we approve the audit.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2022-2023 Grant Cibola County School audit as presented? I will make a motion that we approve the audit. Is there a second?
I second the motion to approve the 2023 GCCS audit.
Thank you. It has been moved by President Lee and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve the 2022-2023 Grant Cibola County Schools audit as presented. Is there any discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
No, nay,
Mr.
nay,
Jaramillo?
Yes,
Bless you.
bless you.
Mr. Ortiz?
I heard yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye. The motion carries. And Mr. Widener.
Action item D. Last summer, we received an innovations grant, which, I'll let Mr. Steve talk, Mr.
Thank you
Maldonado.
again. I wanted to make sure, do you have this summary in your board packet?
Yes.
You do, okay, great, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. This year, we received $200,000 in innovations grant to help with our CTE programming. It's covering a number of items for us, including purchase of equipment, helping with developing programmatic things, working with SEO. We applied for and received approval from the grant makers to purchase 2 pieces of equipment, 2 virtual welding machines that are designed to provide a safe and practical means for students of all needs to practice welding techniques that are based designed for individual students. This is especially helpful for those special ed students who we want to attract more of, to be able to learn welding techniques at their pace in a safe environment. So we're asking you to please approve the purchase of 2 virtual welding machines. One will be placed in Boone Optima High School, one will be placed at Grants High School. The total cost is $73,900, 100% of it funded by the Innovation Development Grant, which we've already received budget authority from the grant maker.
And this
So
will allow
this-
the students to have hands-on experiences with actual welding
This is something totally different.
in a virtual capacity. So I recommend to approve.
Thank you very much. At this time, is there a motion to approve the virtual welding machines in the amount of $77,000?
I'm sorry, no, that's incorrect. If you, I didn't interrupt you, I'm sorry. If you look at the actual quote from the company, that quote included tax, which we can't pay. So the actual amount, instead of 77,516, is, we're asking for $73,900. If you look at the
73,
action item on the summary component, that's what we're asking for because the district cannot pay tax. The quote that was provided included tax and they took that out.
They don't have that part, Steve.
actually, we don't have that. No, you did, my apologies, sir. The summary that I was looking at was the
Okay,
HVAC
well, let me
boilers.
show you that.
My apologies.
So that everyone can see it. Just wanna
Thank
make
you,
sure that
sir.
we're not including more than we have budgeted. So this action item right here, for those of you who are on virtually, is the $73,900. In the packet, the full quote was provided, but I had told the vendor that we can't pay tax and they didn't give us a update, which doesn't really matter, we're paying less than what they quoted and what we're authorized to pay. The total amount we're asking for. The equipment is 72,900 plus a delivery fee of 173,900.
A delivery fee of 1,000.
And this board action, this is the board action we're requesting in terms of language.
Mr. Jaramillo is ready to make a motion.
Yeah. I'll make the motion.
So I'm sorry, this is the language that we'll use when you're, did you get your summary? So that would be the language, sir.
I make the motion to approve the purchase of 2 Vortex 360 compact virtual welding and cutting machines from Matheson Tri-Gas Incorporated of Albuquerque at a total cost of $73,900 to be funded 100% by Innovation Zone Grant. To be funded by the Innovation Zone Grant.
And is there a second?
I second the motion to purchase the 2 virtual welding and cutting machines for that amount of 73,900.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Dr. Archambault to approve the purchase of two Vertex 360 compact virtual welding and cutting machines from Matheson Trigas Incorporated of Albuquerque at a total cost of $73,900 to be funded 100% by the Innovation Zones grant. Is there any discussion?
Well, like Emily said, we just start these CTE programs in our schools now.
Correct. Anything further? All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye. Motion carries. At this time, we will move to the consent agenda. Mr. Wagner.
I recommend that we approve the items on the consent agenda.
Wonderful. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Item A, bills and expenditures report for March 2024, and the bars as listed, the initial budget transfer, maintenance transfer, and increase. At this time, may I have a motion?
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda. Bills and as presented, bills expenditures report for March 2024.
And a second, please.
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the consent agenda as listed, including bills and expenditures for March 2024 and the bars as listed. We shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, motion carries. At this time, the board will meet in executive session pursuant to section 10-15-1H4 of the Open Meetings Act to screen and select a candidate for the 2024 New Mexico School Board Association Scholarship Opportunity. There are 3 student candidates eligible for this opportunity. One from Early College High School, Grants High School, and Laguna Acoma High School. Only one applicant can be recommended for the scholarship opportunity from the board to the New Mexico School Board Association. No action will be taken and only the items listed above will be discussed. Is there a motion to move to executive session as presented?
Move that the board meets in executive session pursuant to the section 10-15-1H4 of the Open Meetings Act to screen and select a candidate for the 2024 New Mexico School Board Association Scholarship Opportunity.
And a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to move to executive session as presented. That will include a discussion about the 3 candidates that are eligible for a scholarship opportunity. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz, Mrs. Lee.
Aye. The motion carries. The board is moving to executive session at 8:16 PM. We shall break for a few minutes in order to get the executive Zoom breakout room going. Mrs. Daly and Mr. Ortiz, you may just stay on. At this moment, you do not have to leave at this time. We will join. And we shall.
Mrs. Lee, they did send us a link or to join.
Perfect.
I
That's the breakout room.
Okay, I'm back.
We weren't, oh, there we go. We're unmuted. Are we ready?
No,
No.
we need,
You tell me.
Take that off there.
yeah, and I that way I don't have to keep running back.
They always have graduates?
Perfect. All right.
We are ready.
This
I
is their
believe we
first
are
one.
ready to go back to open session. Is there a motion to reconvene open session?
I move to reconvene into open session.
And may I have a second, please?
Second.
I second.
It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to reconvene open session. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Ashambo,
Yes.
Mrs. Hunt Daily,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Aye, motion carries. The board reconvene open session at 8:34 PM. Mr. Widener, announcements, please.
Yes, at this time, we have several things coming up. We do have the National School Board Association Conference in New Orleans, the ending of this week and the beginning of next week. So several of us will be traveling there to represent our district and learn about how to work with the National School Boards Association. April 12th, we are planning a special board workshop session where we will work on policies and planning and kind of our board vision for the next school year.
That's it.
And budget.
April 16th, we have our regular school board meeting. And just so you know, at this time, our GCCS CTSO students, FFA, DECA, Skills USA, they're all traveling to compete in state competitions. And our students are headed to the state science fair. And so that is all that I have to announce.
Wonderful. And future agenda items, building the 2024-2025 budget.
Correct.
Obviously key on there. Is there anything else?
We want
Board
everybody
members?
involved in that.
All right.
When, excuse me,
Yes,
when is
Christine.
the special board meeting, April what?
It's April 12th, ma'am. And that'll be the majority of the day. We've had that on our calendar for a couple of board meetings now, ma'am. So we're
On a Friday?
Friday, April 12th.
Okay. And what time does it start at?
I believe we're gonna try and start around 10 o'clock in the morning. We will be working on getting the exact timing and the agenda out. Probably while we are in New Orleans, we'll be
Keep it
getting that
flexible,
out. But we're looking at starting at 10 o'clock after we have a finance committee and budget committee meetings scheduled that morning. And so we'll be looking at starting that close to 10 o'clock, I believe. And then we'll have lunch and some workmanship and presentations that'll be happening. And again, we're gonna be working on getting that agenda finalized while we're in New Orleans so that we can get it to you all as soon as we can. Anything else, ma'am?
Okay, yes, I'll tell you right now, I won't be able to attend. I don't get off until 4:30. And since I'm just a new hire, I don't have any leave or anything to use against, so I won't be in attendance.
Well, we didn't, yeah, Dr. Guy just said, oh, we didn't know you were doing something new.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, board members? All right, Mr. Superintendent Widener, is there a recommendation for the meeting to adjourn?
I recommend that you adjourn.
Wonderful. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved to adjourn.
You to her.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. And it is seconded by Dr. Archambault. So it has been moved by Ms. Hunt Daly and seconded by Dr. Archambault to adjourn our meeting. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Chapel?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz? Mrs. Lee?
Aye. The board adjourns at 8:39 p.m.